Like the other day, I'm seeing this doctor's like, I'm seeing 52 patients today, and then I got 10 surgical cases tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, you can do it, but do you want to do it? And the question is, how long can you do it for?
Welcome to Healthcare Liberty Labs with Tiffany Ryder, where we teach you what they don't want you to know about healthcare.
I would love to start by, just hearing your story of how you went from being in a clinical position, being highly educated in a specific way, to then saying, well, actually, I want to run a business. I want to help people run businesses better. How does that happen?
When I got into medicine and specifically physical therapy, I really wanted to make myself the person to go to. Like that was my goal. I had somebody way back in the day when I was doing like clinical affiliation. She was amazing. I was like, I want to be that person.
Yeah.
So I really took a lot of courses and really practiced a lot on my craft to get quite excellent. And I just got to a point where treating patients wasn't challenging for me. And then B, as I stepped more into a director role, it was honestly just really hard to balance treating a full caseload and then being able to commit as much as I possibly could to actually helping the other clinicians. So that would be the easy way to do it. And then really having an understanding, just honestly, one day of what could be more impactful, focusing on my caseload or being able to help 8 or 10 providers with their caseload. So for me, it was just, like you said, mindset shift of one caseload versus 10. I was like, well, obviously 10 is bigger than one. So making the move from that standpoint was actually what made it possible. And then really even getting to a point where it's, all right, why do you want to now help other practices do the same? I saw in the model that I don't say grew up in, but essentially from when I graduated up until when I was like really treating was just like the same kind of model of excellent patient care mixed with excellent business. I saw what it can actually do for patients. And I just feel like it's a model that doesn't get practiced really nearly enough. And it's really predicated on just great customer service, AKA great patient care. So I like to be able to take that to other practices. We know there's a lot of struggles in healthcare going on. Even the practitioners who have good business sense, it's just a lot. And when you're in the business, like a lot of these individuals, I mean, even like the other day, I'm seeing this doctor's like, I'm seeing 52 patients today, and then I got 10 surgical cases tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, you can do it, but do you want to do it? And the question is, how long can you do it for?
This episode brought to you by Crowd Health. Crowd Health helps you find awesome doctors, negotiate your bills, and fund those bills through our peer-to-peer funding platform. For less, welcome to an easier way to pay for healthcare.
So it sounds like you're really, deep into this space of practice optimization and sort of being the educated pair of eyes that's looking at things from outside the jar, that saying they say you like can't read the label from inside the jar, which I think really resonates here. But, when I talk to health tech founders, or I talk to business leaders in other areas, there's a lot of groupthink going on. There's a lot of shared knowledge. This is what works. This is what doesn't work. Also, masterminds, like groups that come together regularly to discuss, problems that they're having in their business, things like that. Are you seeing that in the private practice space? Like, are doctors, I hear all the time, doctors are bad at business. Okay, that's like a blanket statement that means nothing and that I don't believe whatsoever. But, is some of that rhetoric maybe coming from the fact that maybe doctors, I don't know, delegate less, or maybe they aren't in connection in these groups where they're learning from each other? Like, what is the bottleneck there for practices being able to grow and sort of see the opportunities for optimization and growth?
I do find that there's the challenges that a lot of doctors have, and just people in healthcare in general, is they have a very certain way of thinking. We're very analytical in that sense, which is very good for when you're doing procedures or you're talking to a patient, but sometimes can really hamper you when you're looking into running a practice. And even, this aspect of I can't make any mistakes in medicine, right? But then you get into the business and entrepreneur world, and everything you see on social media, right, is you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes. So it's kind of two opposing viewpoints. On one hand, I got to be perfect, but then, hey, you have to fail in order to learn and get better. It's very conflicting. So there's aspect of, it's not a matter of just who's not great at business. It really comes down to also is who's helping you simply improve, right? Because again, if you're really focused on growth and improvement and optimizing, that's the kind of person that's going to say, all right, how can we always get better? How can we, it's not mandated by continuing education. It's something that you have to want to do. So there's that aspect. And then there is just the aspect of some people get in. And again, it's hard enough being a doctor and being an entrepreneur. So I can't see everything. You have to have some humility to know I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but I can't see everything because I'm actually still treating a lot of patients and I don't see everything that's happening in the business. So therefore, it's getting a set of eyes to help you see what you don't see.
I think there's also, like you said, there's a lack of this supporting system, right? Like you take the CEO of any company, they're not expected to be the expert at web design and cybersecurity and, whatever it is that they make, product design. Like they don't have to know all of those things. The skill set that they need is the ability to listen to the people who are experts at those things and then make the best decisions they can in the interest of the company and goals to get them where they need to be. And I certainly think that doctors have all of those same executive functioning and, ability to know the vision and then make good choices. But I wonder if if it's just knowing that there's like a framework, a scaffolding of people that you need to surround your practice with and that can be trusted to be those experts.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, at the end of the day, to your point, right? It's what are the stats that show that doctors make bad business owners? But in reality, if we look at, one of the trends I like looking at is just how many, what's the percentage of physician-owned practices? And those numbers are going down significantly. That might not be because people don't know how to run businesses, but it does speak to just the challenging environment that we're in, right? And I think if you're in healthcare, I think we all know it's reimbursements getting worse, denials are going up. So when we're looking at the person who pays me, like essentially, right? It's like if you're in if not in a cash practice, but it's somebody else is dictating how much I get paid, and now that person is saying I'm going to pay you less. So if you're looking at sustainability, and that's one aspect of business that I think we tend to forget, is just we open it up, provide great care, but then it's how am I going to make this sustainable? And that's where I feel that a lot of practices are now struggling is they're looking down the barrel of, all right, this trend continues of I'm getting paid less, more of my services are being denied, the patient care is getting affected. How long can I keep this going on for? And that's where we're seeing either younger doctors not want to get into practice ownership. And then you have the older physicians who are just, this is getting unreasonable. I'm getting older and I'm getting more stressed, as opposed to maybe making my life a little bit simpler. Why the hell do I want to hold on to this practice? And that's why you're seeing more venture capitalists and even large healthcare systems starting to buy up more practices because it's just a release valve. So it's not always a matter of, hey, you don't know how to run it, but there is this aspect of you're great at running it, but do you know what you're going to be doing for the next 2 years? Do you know what you're going to be doing for the next 5 years? What happens when your passion ends and you almost start not hate going to work, but you just lost the love? What do you do then? Because that's when a lot of people look to get out. And by that point, it's already kind of too late. So it's just making sure that, do you have the right leadership team in place? Do you need to maybe develop or build out or maybe hire a leadership team? Do you have the right systems that can automate things to make your life a little bit easier, as well as the life of your employees and improve the experience for the patients? Do you have a kind of culture that really is going to help build, long term? And then do you actually just know, all right, again, if these trends continue, what do we do that doesn't lead us into having to actually fire staff and downsize?
Okay, so it's really interesting. So one of the reasons that I love podcasting is because it's essentially the chance to record as your framework is changing. And I think this whole discussion has really added something to the way that I see this problem. But it really, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that it's not that medicine is winnable and the physicians are not running their businesses in a way that allows them to win. It's like physicians were running their businesses in a way that allowed them to win. And then someone went around back and changed all of the rules. Like it almost seems like, when we had private practice and we were accepting cash payments from patients. And then we decided, oh, well, we want patients to be able to afford care at all times. And we want to insure against some of these like higher ticket things. Like, well, let's go ahead and enter into this other system. And perhaps for a period of time, that was a reasonable choice and was equitable. But that, maybe what's happening is that the insurance companies that are changing the rules are the same ones that are, I believe, in cahoots with the hospital administrators and, all of these MBAs running around who are saying, oh, you don't know how to practice business. And it's not about business. It's about being able to thrive in a system that is essentially stacked against the clinicians.
Yeah. Right. And it's a really great point. When you think of most organizations, their method of growing is pretty straightforward, which is get more patients. Right? If you're in the insurance game,
get more people in.
Yeah. If you're in the insurance game, your goal is get more people, get more patients.
Yeah.
Right? But then it just kind of feeds into the cycle. So it's more providers, more doctors are quitting, which puts more stress on the people that are staying. And then you add to that by saying, now we need more patients. So it's, how do we go down this cycle of doctors quitting healthcare, which is, we already know is happening. It's only going to get way worse over the next 4 or 5 years, based on a system that, it's like definitely, it's failing. It's definitely not helping, So again, we're looking down the barrel. It's just, you create your own problem. So I need more people because I'm getting paid less. And then you just keep adding and adding. It's just, all right, but I want to avoid burnout and I want to enjoy my life. Well, how can you do that when you're now having to see 20% more people just to make the same amount of money?
Yeah.
So you definitely see some practices that are going cash-based. But for a lot of doctors, I should say, it's really challenging because, the question always comes up is, well, what about the patients that can't afford that? What do I do with them? How do I still provide care to them? So it's just challenging, and that's why it's being able to get ahead of these things. And to your point, it's not necessarily, a matter of, hey, I'm terrible at business. But again, for even at doctors, maybe seeing like 40 or 50 people a day, it's just how the hell can you run a business to its best? And that's what it comes down to is how do you run it to its best when you're still busy actually treating patients? So what's going to give? And then if you give up the control, so to speak, on either running the business or give up the control with regards to seeing patients, what are you going to now use that time? How are we going to use it to effectively improve the other aspect? And I do find that sometimes practitioners don't want to stop treating patients, either A, because they just love it, which I'm like, that's fine, keep doing that.
Yeah.
Why stop it? Or they're like, well, if I stop treating patients, which keeps me busy all damn day, what do I use that time with? Or how do I use that time effectively?
Sure.
Because now I just freed up 8 hours, 9, 10 hours a day. And then they're just like, well, I'll just be sitting there being bored, so I might as well just treat patients. So it's also helping them understand that, hey, once you take off your doctor hat or your provider hat and you actually wear your entrepreneur owner hat more, this is the stuff that you're going to now have to start spending time on. Training, developing, building out all the systems you don't have, understanding what numbers actually matter, like denial rates in insurance, how to overcome a lot of that. So there's things that are happening in the business that a lot of these individuals, they're just not fully aware of. And I think it's real like if you don't know what you don't know, you can't really, it's hard to make some progress on that aspect.
But to go back to, where we really started, like, isn't it the problem that you used to be able to run the one-man show and treat the patients, and the business aspects were not being artificially screwed with, right, by third parties, so that you literally could see enough patients. You didn't have to see 50 patients to keep your lights on. You could see 20 patients and keep the lights on. And that really the thing that's changed, the variable that's changed in that equation isn't the doctors or how much attention they have to pay. It's that there are these outside forces that are basically making running a one person show impossible, is what it sounds like.
Almost, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's going to depend on what industry, and right. If you're a spine surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, like let's just call it what it is, you're going to get paid more than primary care physician.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at, to your point though, it's all right. This variable has changed. That's where I also think a lot of people get tripped up on, is that then they focus on that, and we almost want to. It's very easy to want to blame because it's pretty straightforward. It's like, all right, it's clearly insurance fault. But then if we look at the situation as a whole, do we think it's going to improve? Now, I might be negative, but I tend to think I'm just more realistic. I don't really think so. When we understand how much money insurance lobbyists spend every year in Washington, it's like you're almost fighting an uphill battle. And even though you can fight for change, there's this aspect where let's just anticipate it's not going to change. What happens if it doesn't change? What happens if doctors don't unionize, which is probably not likely? If this stays the same, what are we going to do? When we're looking at it, and that's where I believe a lot of doctors get tripped up on, is we just want to stay stuck on faulting the insurance, which definitely is their fault, instead of though focusing on solutions, right? So is my solution going cash-based? Is my solution maybe hiring somebody who's maybe just better at a business to help me identify opportunities? Maybe it's more clinics, maybe, or maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I just want to downsize and control my costs a little bit more. That's cool too, but we get caught up A, in the business, and then B, get caught up in just wanting to blame, instead of really sitting down and just understanding, if this doesn't change, what are we going to do? What kind of solutions can we put in place? And also understanding too that somebody's problems for a different person is an opportunity. And that's where the people who do the best long term, they create opportunities for themselves. And the example I always go to, like I almost hate bringing it up because I know it scarred a lot of people, but when we go back to even COVID, and we look at businesses that did really well, healthcare different, but when we just look at businesses, they were all getting shut down.
Yeah.
And a lot of restaurants closed down, but there were some people during COVID did better. And I'm not talking about people who were supplying masks. Some restaurants, right? Because they identified, what's the opportunity here that we have? We never had a drive-through. We never had delivery. What happens if we do that? And for a lot of those businesses, they exploded. So that's why I say, instead of focusing on everything that's going wrong, which is, hey, we're all closing down, we're shutting down. Some people said, let's look at the opportunity here. And that's what I'm advocating for a lot of these physicians is, we know the problem, and we know it's most likely not going to change, at least not anytime soon. So what kind of solution and opportunity can we create for ourselves, even during this challenging time?
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset. That's a great place to come from, because that is true. And I know business owners who took that impossible situation and did exactly what you just described, changed their whole business, made millions of dollars.
Yep, 100%.
Just from the opportunity. And I mean, those are the businesses that I patronized myself, right? I said, oh, you're going to deliver, I don't know, cocktails to my house, which you were never allowed to do before? That sounds novel. Sign me up. There was a lot of that. It's a really interesting frame. When you work with practices, and I'm asking these questions semi-generically because I have a lot of very close friends who we talk on the phone, and it's like I hear the struggles of private practice, man. It is not easy, and it's all the things that you're describing. It's the not knowing, how to outsource and who to hire, and how to set up these like KPIs, right? How to set up metrics to even know who's doing well, and are we doing well, and is this going to translate into the future? All of those things. But what is one of the first things, like if I'm looking for someone to help me with my practice, maybe I'm paying my bills, but I'm, progressively making less and less, cutting into the salary that I'm able to pay myself, going home and just feeling depressed or exhausted or burned out or whatever that is. And I'm like, something has to be done because I'm holding everything together with duct tape, but I don't even know where to start. Like, what is that? Who am I even looking for in that moment?
I mean, and we're talking private practice here, but obviously you already see a lot of these changes, obviously, in hospitals, right? I feel like they're almost like the incubator. They're the ones that are like, they're trying to make the most money a lot of times. minus the ones that are obviously nonprofit, but a lot of times the hospitals are the one that
Now, those
they're
people are trying to make money too.
so they're the ones that are experimenting, but experimenting for them usually means cutting staff, right? We've seen how many nursing shortages there are. So it's all right. Like the normal mentality is just cut, which again, it has its place, but not as like the go-to approach. The most
And
important thing,
those changes tend to affect patient care, I think,
100%.
more than the changes that these doctors who own private practices are willing to consider because
No
they
doubt
care
about
about
it.
their patients.
I will say the one thing that hospitals do better than a lot of private practices is they just collect data, right? So they understand. I mean, ask somebody who works in a hospital that's like a manager, whatever, with the average time that somebody's staying in, discharge rate, this and that. Guarantee they know that by the back of their hand. But the metrics are typically what we don't look at when we're running a practice. And it's not to say, all right, calculate how much you're making off each patient, but really, are you keeping tabs on really what are you making per visit? What's your patient retention rate looking like? Like how many patients actually come back for care? That's a big one, right? So if we're looking to improve care, part of that is patients actually going through with their treatments, right? So having some metrics that we can actually understand, are we doing a great job? What's our patient discharge rate? And then understanding how those things correlate with the business. Even something simple as how many patients, if we're kind of setting, how many patients even leave reviews or refer other people to you, right? So if I'm trying to understand, are we doing a great job? Well, again, how many patients do you get better? And then how many of them do something positive for you in the sense of sending somebody to you, right? So it's really having the right kind of data to help you understand, are we moving in the right direction? There's data you can get every day, right? And it doesn't even matter what kind of clinic you're in, if it's urology, podiatry, whatever it may be. It's just some real easy stuff you can do every single day, which is what's our cancellation and reschedule rate, right? And talk to a lot of providers, and they don't calculate that. They don't even look at it. It's just like, well, we had people that didn't show up, so okay. Versus understanding,
I love that. That's something you could do today. Literally, you're listening to this podcast, you go to the office tomorrow, count how many people were there and how many people showed.
Yeah, because then when you're looking at it, right, and we just, a lot of times it's, hey, that's healthcare, right? Like patients are going to cancel and they're not going to come in. But do you take the time to understand why? Mm-hmm. Right? So, and do you understand what is normal versus not normal? So even, when I was younger, we had the clinic I was at that it really started at had a high cancellation rate. And then I understood, all right, where's normal at and how far away are we from that? And why are we so damn far away? And we instituted some changes that drastically reduced our cancellation rate, which again, for some people like, big whoop-de-doo, but it's like, all right, number one, you got into medicine to actually help patients. So if they're not coming in, you should have some pride, number one, about your own care. And number two, how are you actually helping them if they don't show up? But then you're also factoring in, well, I spent this money on marketing to get the patients in, so now you're just wasting money too. So there's a lot to look at. And then when you're analyzing, all right, what can I measure weekly? What do I need to measure monthly, right? So then there's metrics like, hey, what's our claim acceptance rate? Like if I'm submitting stuff to insurance, how quickly, what's our first pass rate? How many of those claims go through without getting docked, without getting denied? Do I understand why they get denied? Because again, we just want to always, going back to the beginning, we always want to blame insurance, but then the shit that we do wrong as providers, that actually creates denial sometimes too. So as much as you want to say, well, insurance sucks, that's why I got denied. Did you actually read the letter? Like, do you understand these reasons that you're being denied? Maybe because you had inaccurate information that your front desk got from the very beginning, or you didn't write the right diagnosis code. So that's why when I look at the data, it's not to, again, scrutinize and say, how do we do more with the patients and build the insurance? It's things that you're already doing. You want to get paid for just the stuff that you're already doing. But if you're not keeping tabs on what is actually happening throughout their journey, how can you make improvements?
And it's funny because all of the things that you're mentioning, like very, very much seem like common sense, right? But it's not common sense when I spend 10 hours of my day thinking about, family medicine and not thinking about any of these metrics or if they're being measured or what I'm going to do about it. So
no, and that's also on the flip side, though. You see these organizations that are bought out by venture capitalists, and they're still allowing the practice to run. But then those are the changes that everybody's nervous about, right? Is it going to be, hey, start doing this procedure more, don't do that because it's not covered? And then that's the crap that holds a lot of people back. It's like, I don't want to go down that path, and I don't blame them, because you shouldn't. And that's why at least from my goal is to show people just, hey, look, you can still do exactly what you're doing, but there's just some little tweaks that you can do that actually make a massive difference that will not affect your patient care negatively and improve your business, which really is the name of the game. At the end of the day, healthcare is still a business. If you're not making money, nobody's staying open. Hospital, independent, right? It's like, you don't want to treat it as business, but newsflash, if you're not making money, you're closing down, or you're going to be forced to sell. So there is this aspect where, yes, how do we improve the patient care? But then how do we also improve just the aspect of running the business so we can keep treating the patients?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense. From the perspective of taking an existing business that's perhaps like having trouble or has some things that need improved, as opposed to starting from scratch, like, are you working with clinicians who are like, oh man, I want to move to a private practice model, I want to move to a cash pay model, or from that beginning area, and how does that differ? Is that something that you enjoy just as much as the refinement process?
Yeah, those are the individuals that typically say, well, I'm just starting out, so I don't need the help. Or, and I get this aspect, I'm not making any money yet, so how can I hire somebody to help me out? All right, but then this aspect of when we're just starting that a lot of people overlook, which is the foundational thing, is like all the stuff we just talked about. Having an understanding of what my leadership, what I want that to look like, have an understanding of what do our systems look like, right? And even now, where some people, they get a little held up, and it's like, oh, I don't want to make my organization too corporate. It's like, you do understand from when when a patient calls your practice, that's the beginning of a process, right? So it's what happens when they call, and then after, and then them coming into the practice, and then I'm leaving. So having these things dialed in from the very beginning is what most people overlook, because like you said, it's only, hey, it's just me. It's just me as the doctor. I have one front desk person, and then maybe I have like a VA, maybe. So what do I need to build out? Standard operating procedures. What do I need to start? Why do I need KPIs? Like, I can do all this. And then we start getting busier, and it's like, oh shit, I need to get these things in place, and now it's kind of too late. Or if you're able to do it, it's that, man, this is a lot more work now than it should have been if I just did it at the beginning. So that's why the people at the beginning really benefit from this, honestly, the most, because then it makes the rest of their life way easier. As opposed to, again, you're busy and you want to just focus on growing and helping patients, but now you're like, all right, this bottleneck's here, and I can't figure out what it is. And the way I look at it too is, what if you should have made an extra 20% last year? Right. Yeah. So even if we think about it as an employee, somebody's making 100 grand, they're like, phenomenal. But what if you should have made 120?
Yeah.
Or, your practice made 10 million, but it actually really should have made 12 if you just had these things in place that help prevent, revenue leakage and lost productivity. What does that 10 million look so good now? It's like, damn, no, it kind of sucks. Especially if that's money I should have made. Right. And that's one of the things with, practice owners. I'm like, it's hard enough. It's getting hard enough to get paid. So why would you want to throw money away that you earned, and that the insurance thankfully said, all right, we'll actually pay you for that? You just kind of like pissed it away, so to speak, because you weren't focused on a few things that could have actually saved you a ton.
In this world where, doctors and clinicians are being consistently told by someone with an MBA how to run their practice, we get really angry. We get, obstinate and push back, and are almost get into the mindset that those people don't have value to bring, which is totally the wrong lesson, right? Like, the lesson should be, I'm going to learn what I need to learn from all these different disciplines, including the people out there with their MBAs, so that I can be successful and continue to make the clinical decisions that are important to me, that allow me to continue to serve my patients.
Yeah, I think, part of that too, I should say, is the feedback that I get will be, well, if I'm going to bring somebody like that in, I want them to respect my training, right? I want them to respect the fact that I'm a doctor and I do know some stuff about business, and it's not to discount what I've done, which I I get, right? Because then it's very easy. And look, your feedback, your comment about doctors don't know business. I've said stupid shit like that when I was younger too.
Yeah.
But you're coming around to understand human, like rapport and connections with people is really about understanding them, right? And getting to see what they're all about. So it's not coming in saying, all right, doc, you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's like, all right, let's talk about what you're really good at, but let's just talk about what the struggles are and what are some of the stuff that you can't overcome because the deck is stacked against you.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So
vice versa, right? Like we don't need to look at the MBAs and say, you have an MBA, please get out.
Yeah.
Right? There's some value there.
No, I think this really comes down to just, I really love this principle, and it's something that I've struggled with at times, but seek first to understand and then be understood, right? The old Stephen Covey. It's like, how can I understand your worldview? Like, understand where you're coming from first before I want to impose my own beliefs and views. And that's obviously, I say it is, but it's just a societal issue at this point where we're all trying to just be the loudest voice, whereas we just connect and communicate and work better when there's a mutual understanding of what we're both all about. And I do find that that's the challenge when bringing in, you have that person, like you said, who has the MBA, wealth of knowledge, but then maybe they want to come in and say, like discount what I've done as a doctor. But then from the doctor standpoint too, there's this aspect of, all right, maybe I shouldn't be so biased. And maybe I can also understand, what is this MBA about as well? What is this person who's doing high level consulting or coaching, whatever it may be, what are they all about before I just bring my own opinions and biases to the conversation as well? So it goes both ways.
It does. That's funny. All right. So you and I met on LinkedIn, and I think that's where I learned the lesson that you were just talking through about, really borrowing best practices from different industries. And, I find that, the same rules of connecting with other healthcare leaders on social media, for example, are the same. They're the same rules that a finance person would use to connect with other finance people. And, we're all sort of in this space, trying to learn and trying to connect and trying to overcome our own biases. How are you seeing private practice physicians, private practices in general, whether they're cash based or insurance, using social media to connect with their patients and to do some organic marketing? How is that playing out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Not enough.
Okay.
Not enough is it's not an opinion, but you do some research on practices. I mean, I get bewildered by the fact that you can go on Google sometimes, and I'll get to social media in 1 second, but you go on Google, just like a lot of patients do, right? Where am I going? Let me read some reviews. And then there's this practice that's been around for maybe 10, 15 years. Like, how the hell do you have 10 reviews?
Yes.
When you've been established for that long.
Happens all the time.
Yes. And then to your point, it's like, all right, maybe they're just not getting a lot of reviews. So let me go on social media and see what they have. And it's like, they don't even have a social media presence at all. Or it's like, hey, here's a post from like a year ago. So what, a lot of organizations don't understand. I get it. It's like, all right, that's time that I maybe don't have, right? I'm seeing patients and running business. I don't have time to be in front of a freaking camera or like doing dumb, silly
dumb dances on TikTok.
Yes, silly dances for patients to see. But what they don't quite understand is that social media, number one, is an opportunity to showcase your organization as a whole, right? So if you're talking about, hey, we're a family-owned business and we really pride ourselves, like, show that, right? Because that's the stuff that people don't care about degrees. And that is an aspect where some doctors struggle. They're like, I got all these degrees behind me and shit.
Yeah.
Patients don't care about that. They want to know, can you help me? But then are you a jerk? Are you going to treat me with respect? Like, can I come in and ask questions? Or are you just going to, again, point to those degrees behind me and say, well, why are you asking me questions when I got a degree from Harvard? And it's like, they don't care. So social media is a huge aspect for that a lot of these businesses are missing out on, because it just gives you an ability for patients to kind of see inside a little bit, but it's also just a different side. And when we're talking about how patients are making decisions outside of looking at Google reviews, again, if you have like 5 of the same kind of practice within 5 miles, and they all have maybe 100 reviews and all pretty damn good, 4.9, 4.8, it's not much difference. Like, all right, how do I know the difference I pick what clinic? Maybe you're a little bit younger and you're like, well, I'll go on social media and you see one of those practices has got this amazing content. The doctor explaining stuff about what he does or what she does. They got some team stuff on there, like employee bonding and culture kind of things. You're like, I'm going to probably pick that practice versus the ones that don't even exist. So that's why I'm like, it's an opportunity. And there's smart and efficient ways to do this, but that's where it's a great way to do it. And the beautiful thing is that technically that's marketing. And if you have somebody internally doing it, doesn't really cost you much, so it gives you the ability to essentially advertise for free. So it's time. And that's where, again, when I know a lot of owners are like, I barely have time to even go to the bathroom. How am I going to?
Yep.
Well, again, it doesn't always have to be just you two doing all the talking. It's like there's clever, obviously, ways, and we have more resources now available than we've ever had before, right? So we talk about AI in healthcare, and just in general, it's not always a matter of these amazing tools and instruments and things that are phenomenal. It's like, all right, what kind of AI tools are there to help me actually create some content that I can get done in 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Like those things are readily available there. So it is an aspect a lot of business owners, primary care, and just healthcare in general, they're missing out on significantly. The ones that do that, I find that they do a lot better. And it's not just because patients, they get more of them. It's because they build out a personality, and patients resonate with that. Like,
and you get the right patients, right? Like you get the patients that like your style, or that you talk too much, or that you are goofy in some way, that you're organically
100%.
goofy. Yeah.
The patients are going to come in. They're gonna feel like they know you already, which builds more trust, and it instantaneously also builds some credibility. So that's what a lot of these practices are missing. And that's why I'm like, you would help yourself so much if you just did something, show something, update something, and show people that you're active and you have a little bit of personality so they can connect with you before they even come in.
I love that. I love that answer. So speaking of connection, I know that you have an amazing podcast, which I was able to be in studio for. So that's great. So can you tell us how we can find your podcast, how we can find you on social, how we can ping you and ask you a question if we're interested in maybe working with you and having you take a peek at our practice?
Yeah. Podcast, and I appreciate the kind words. The podcast itself is on literally, I think, any imaginable platform you could find. And there's like ones I didn't even know about. So any imaginable platform, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon, it's out there.
What's the name of it again?
All Things Locks. Now it's not
LOCS.
LOCS, which is Leadership, Operations, Culture, and Strategies for Growth, is the name of the game. So you can find that at pretty much every major streaming platform. And then just from a standpoint of social media, at some point I probably need to do something for the business, but right now it's just me as basically the brand ambassador. So it's Dan, just my name, Dan Asani. So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And then the website is going to be tbpstrategies.com. And then you can go there, see how we can help you. Ton of blogs on there, ton of info, some courses that we're putting out as well. So we got a healthcare leadership course on there, and then I'm putting out soon a patient retention course, as well as a hiring and onboarding for healthcare practitioners course. So there's gonna be some good stuff that you guys can definitely utilize as well. And yeah, I mean, name of the game is just to help people and bring value.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. And, just an additional plug for your podcast. Something that I thought was really interesting about it, in addition to the fact that it's in studio, so it's like high audio and video quality, is the guests that you have on there are sort of, to your point about borrowing from all areas and all industries. The guests are like from everywhere. Like I saw one where there was a woman who did, I don't remember, it was like decorating or remodeling. Yeah, that was awesome. And, obviously there are, plenty of clinicians on there, but it's just sort of a grab bag of super successful, really interesting stories and people from all walks of life who, happen to also walk through Vegas and record in studio with you. But I really like that about your pod. I think it's really fun and kind of different.
No, thanks. No, I appreciate that. That's the goal, and obviously we goal is to point people in the direction of how to apply it towards healthcare.
Yes.
But even, like you said, even interior designer, right? Like, how the hell is this going to help me? It's like, there are stats showing the aesthetics of a clinic that it actually improves patient outcomes. So when we're like, this doesn't apply to me, it's like, you get something from everybody. That's why we love doing it. That's why we wanted to put a little bit of a different slant. We could have just made it all medical professionals.
You
But I'm
could
like,
have, but this is more fun, and I enjoy it. So
yeah, no, we love it, and we've loved the guests we've had on so far, including obviously yourself too.
well, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time to just sort of talk through things with us, because I don't own a medical practice myself, and so it's hard for me to really envision, right, like all of those detail metric things. So I wasn't honestly sure how this was going to go. But turns out the stuff that we need to be looking at is pretty front and center, and it actually makes a lot of sense when you
Yeah.
start to break it down. So I appreciate you coming on and like making my brain and hopefully other people's brains sort of think through that process. And I hope that you all will connect with Dan, because he's putting out some thought provoking content and some things that are interesting to see and hear.
No, I appreciate it. Get out of your comfort zone, embrace what you don't know, and just focus on growing your business and helping your patients.
I love it. Thanks, Dan.
This has been the Healthcare Liberty Lab. Thank you to our listeners and our sponsor, Crowd Health, for making this possible. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, be it Substack, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or somewhere else. We're glad to have you with us on this mission to rethink healthcare together.